All right. Hello and welcome to the Beyond Business as Usual interview series. My name is Philippe Dubreuil. I'm your host, and today I have the pleasure to meet Ben Wolff, who is the owner of OASI. And Ben, look, it's a pleasure. I was really looking forward to meet with you and to hear a little bit about your journey and about your business and what you do. So let's just kick it off right away with a little bit of backstory, a little bit of like your history as an entrepreneur, and about who you are and what OSC is all about. Floor
Sure.
is yours.
Yeah. Thanks, Philip, for having me on, and happy to talk about the journey. I certainly know that there can be hard times along the way, and it helps others to hear some inspiring stories and kind of getting through the trenches, as it may be. I mean, my entrepreneurial journey really started pretty young. I was already experimenting with business as senior in high school into early college. Had an events and promotions business at the first college that I went to, and that actually extended when I transferred to NYU. So that was kind of my initial foray into business. Studied business in undergrad. When I went to NYU, I actually helped found a club called Tech at NYU, which was really riding on the wave of tech startups moving to New York City and when Silicon Alley really became a thing. We got great access to a lot of the startup founders and, had a bunch of speakers come and talk to the students. And it was a very exciting time to be in New York in the tech scene.
I
Tech
bet.
startups had just moved to New York as well. And I actually I did an independent study called Non-Tech Founders in Tech because I wasn't a coder. And so learned pretty quickly that most of the folks that were successful that were not engineers, were not coders, had some unfair advantage. There was the main developer for their startup was a roommate, or they had some very significant domain expertise that, they were a subject matter expert in, let's say, healthcare, like what you do, and they linked up with a developer, a coder to build out a product for that space. So realized pretty early on that I might want to pivot from focusing on technology first startups, not being an engineer. And so ended up taking a little bit of a break from my entrepreneurial endeavors. When I graduated NYU, I went to work at McKinsey, which was, was a strategy consulting firm, and was
Oh,
kind
wow.
of it was a great, just sort of survey the landscape of a number of different types of businesses and get to work inside of banks and healthcare institutions, and came to realize pretty quickly that I didn't want to work for like a big Fortune 500 company or a really big corporation. And I loved building things and seeing them through and really creating. As a consultant, you're mostly creating decks and strategy and not really seeing stuff get implemented. So, I wanted to create, I wanted to build stuff, and ultimately left that job. And then my entrepreneurial journey really started. I started a lifestyle and events company. It did, pretty well for a few years, but was not something I was going to retire off of.
Okay.
But I met a lot of people. It sort of introduced me to the hospitality scene in New York City, and to some extent the real estate scene. And around 2014, 2015 is when I really started getting serious about short-term rentals and Airbnb. So around that time that we started doing what's called lease arbitrage, where we would lease apartments and then sublease them out on Airbnb. This was
Hmm.
before the city was cracking down in a big way, and
Are you imagine? Yeah.
we were generating quite a bit of cash flow, and it was a great little business. And that that grew. I was doing software sales at the time, and the Airbnb stuff was kind of a side hustle for me. And then around spring of 2018, I realized I was making more money doing less work on the short-term rentals. So I quit my job and really took the plunge full time. And that's when we grew pretty dramatically. So we went from a handful of units under management, probably about eight or so in New York and DC, to 200 units across the country that we were managing by the end of 2019, right before COVID. Most of our inventory was city short-term rentals. So when COVID hit, most of that business evaporated overnight. I was actually overseas in the Philippines with my 20-person call center team doing
Oh,
an offsite when like early March 2020, when the borders got shut, COVID started spreading like wildfire. And while we were on this offsite that was supposed to be like a celebratory retreat, all of our bookings got canceled overnight, basically. So it was the doldrums of despair, we'll call it, and trying to put on a happy face for my people, that we were going to make it through. But I was scared as hell and didn't know if we would. But ultimately, we did. We found a way to skate by. We negotiated with landlords. We found a way to break even on the leases. We applied for PPP money to keep us afloat. We actually didn't have to fire a lot of people. We were already pretty lean. So we didn't have to let go of great people that we had, which was amazing.
mhm.
But really, through all that, and because of it, I got pushed into building what became the first Onera, which is this beautiful outdoor hospitality concept, what I call a landscape hotel. You might think of it as luxury glamping, or you might think of it as a treehouse resort. We have tree houses and safari tents and container homes and all of these, very interesting, unique style accommodations set in a beautiful, remote, natural landscape. So I got pushed into doing that because, driving destination travel and really the great outdoors started to boom during COVID. It was the only, area of hospitality
Yeah.
that was doing really well. Nobody wanted to go to cities. And so kind of got pushed in that direction. And I had just come off a 6-week road trip with my wife for our honeymoon. We had just got married end of 2019, and we hit like a dozen national parks in 6 weeks. And so love the experience, waking up looking at these beautiful mesas and hoodoos and canyons and the sunrises. I mean, it was incredible, but we had all of these RV gaffes, right? We had to go to dealerships because things broke, or a compartment would break and our stuff would fall out onto the highway, and all of this friction that would happen due to, basically, driving with a house in the back are constantly going through an earthquake, which is how I describe an RV. So because of that experience, I wanted to do something that was higher end, that was less, had less friction, and really provided all the comforts of home and then some, set in this beautiful natural setting for people to reconnect with themselves, with each other, and with nature. And that's ultimately what led to Onera. I'll pause there, but there's a lot to talk
Okay.
about with Onera and, what then later became OASI as well.
Wow. Fantastic. I mean, again, and there you are. See, what the interesting thing I see, and I talk to many, many business owners and entrepreneurs, is the grit and the refusal to quit in face of adversity. I mean, it's amazing to see that you just pushed through, you worked it out, and us as human beings are more resilient than we can give ourselves credit, you know.
For sure.
And you're a perfect example of this. This is beautiful. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about OSC. Okay.
OASI, yeah. Yeah, so let me pick up from Onera and then I'll transition
Okay,
into
let's go in there. I'm good.
yeah. Yeah, so just because Onera really led to OASI in a lot of ways, so I
Okay.
think it's important to kind of tie it in. So Onera, our first landscape hotel, treehouse resort, we built in Fredericksburg, Texas, built the whole thing in 2021. We opened in November, which was extraordinarily fast, I found out in hindsight. But we got our doors open and we opened to immediate success, largely with the COVID tailwinds
Yeah.
propelling outdoor hospitality and unique stays. So we did well out the gate. We were only on Airbnb to start because that was the platform I knew the best, and we did well with Airbnb. But I had an influencer, a travel creator, reach out to me on Airbnb and say, "Hey, I want to come out and do a collab post, do a giveaway for my audience." She had, I don't know, at the time, probably a couple 100,000 followers on Instagram, and it piqued my interest. So we said, "All right, let's give it a try." So we spun up a direct booking website for Onera, which we didn't even have yet. And we spun up an Instagram account. She came out And she ended up just doing it for free because she wanted to showcase Onera and she wanted to be able to be the first influencer to show off the property. So we ended up doing $30,000 over 2 posts in direct bookings from this creator, and we didn't end up paying her anything. Since then, I've paid her quite a bit to come back and do other collabs and posts for us, but we've always had amazing ROI from her posts and her giveaways. But that really turned me on to this world of social media, driving direct bookings and influencer marketing. So we really kind of took the bull by the horns with that one. And we ended up hosting, I would say, dozens of more influencers throughout that first year. And we did about 30 to 35% of our bookings direct, which was pretty high for our industry. Most people are doing the vast majority of their bookings at this time on OTAs like Booking.com, like Airbnb and Expedia. So being able to drive all this traffic direct was amazing. We're saving 14% off the top that would typically go to an OTA, like like an Airbnb. So that was interesting. And then so in the following year, we ended up going even more all in on social media. We tried to hire an agency. That fell flat. A lot of the social media agencies out there we found they're very much into vanity metrics, right? Followers, account growth. And even when it comes to those metrics, a lot of times they fall flat. But I've always been shocked by how low the engagement is on some of these agency managed social media accounts. And I had an owner's perspective of I care about bookings. I care about, my brand, show me the revenue, right? And so that ultimately led me to end up building a team in-house to do all the social media marketing for Onera. So we built out a team of videographers, creative associates. We had a bunch of models that we worked with, editing firms. So we built out this whole team and process for pumping out highly engaging, sometimes viral videos on Instagram. And we were having so much success with it that ultimately it turned into a whole new vertical in business for us. So that's what ultimately led to OASI, which provides full service hotel management, marketing with social media really being at the core of that. And then also provides design and development services. So we'll partner with projects, experiential resorts that want to leverage, my experience and our collective team's experience in building these one of a kind hotel properties. Yeah.
So okay, I got another. Now you get me
Yeah.
excited here. Okay, so let's say I'm in Canada, right? So let's say I'm like, okay, so I want to build an outdoor thing for watching northern lights and polar bears and what have you up in. So I basically come with my concept to you guys, and you guys will work with me to give birth to this. Is that it?
So we definitely can, right? I mean, that's one way we work with a lot of people and a lot of them come to us. To some extent, it will depend on like how well capitalized you are, how far along you are. Some folks that are very early will just pay me and OASI for some consulting, right? We'll do hourly consulting. For projects that have a little bit more capital, we will do the full concepting. So we'll create a concept package, a design, a pitch deck, all these things for your project so that will help you with getting financing from a bank, investors, things like that, and really help you in crafting the concept and ultimately developing the project. So we'll do that. And those can range anywhere from 25,000 to 50,000 to do those concept packages. And it's not architectural or building plans. You'll still need to work with an architect. We have some recommendations on that front, but it's kind of getting you to concept, some renderings, some design, and then, a pro forma and a financial model that you can use to think about the project and sell it. So we will do that with folks for sure. And then the other side of the business is services for once a project is already up and running, once the hotel is open. So once the hotel is open, and sometimes like a little bit before that, we'll do all the marketing. So social media, organic content, influencer marketing. We have a partner we work with on the paid ad side. If a group wants to do that, we do SEO in-house, email marketing. So we have this full service marketing agency for hotels. And then we do the full service hotel management as well. So guest experience, staffing, hiring all the people that you need, training them up, the guest experience and communications, revenue management and pricing. So it's really a 360 approach that we'll take to these either upscale to luxury properties, or at least experiential and highly unique. And our sweet spot is really both experiential and upscale is really where we shine.
Awesome. No, this is great. So I can see you cater to pretty much anybody that wants to get involved with hospitality, and I mean, I can see you've been there, you've done that, you've seems like you've got the secret sauce, and you got it down pat. This is amazing. Okay, so now I'm looking at your website right now, and I can see your mission, your vision, which is beautiful. You're a bit of a disruptor for the market, which I kind of like. Now you say in there like your values. You got four values that you mentioned there, right? You got intellectual curiosity, accountability, honesty, and collaboration. Now, how did you come up with those values? That's my question.
Yeah, so look, I think that intellectual curiosity is one of those things that drives us to innovation, right? We're always curious. We're not going to accept something. And you talk about being a disruptor, right? And you don't become a disruptor and you don't create edge in your business and become an innovator by just following the status quo, by doing what's been done in the industry for so long. And I mean, the hotel world is just littered with that. I mean, as much as any industry I've seen, it's these, massive assets, sometimes worth hundreds of millions. And really the goal is to not mess it up. It's not to really, do something innovative and create outsized value and returns. It's just to kind of, hit the single, generate the, high single digit returns, maybe low double digit, but typically not hitting these 20, 30% plus returns that we're targeting.
Mhm.
So that's the intellectual curiosity side. Collaboration has really just been the result of having some bad experiences with folks that had big egos, were not good collaborators, and ultimately have torpedoed projects and torpedoed areas of the business. So collaboration, being able to effectively work with others, letting the best idea win, it doesn't matter whose idea it is, has
Mhm.
become just a guiding light for our business and our team. Honesty is a given. I think it is important, though, just in the day and age we live in. I feel like honesty is undervalued and sometimes looked over. And
I
it's so important, honesty with our clients, honesty with our team, just full transparency at all aspects of the business, I think is really important. As well as what we put out there in our newsletter and on social media. It's like we want to be honest, we want to be transparent, we want to be genuine. And then accountability, I think for any business is so important. Like, and we talk about extreme ownership. And for people that work for me and my co-founder, Jesse, we need people that are problem solvers, right? That are going to try and fix something, try and learn, try and, create value. And if there's a mistake, okay, we learn from it. If they need help, of course, there's support for them. But it's not, we kind of jokingly talk about it like, don't come to me and ask me how to breathe, right? Like we can't, if you come to me and ask me how to breathe, then we don't have a business, right? Me and my co-founder are the bottleneck, and it's all coming back to us. So we need people on the team that take full accountability for their scope and run with it. And if they make a mistake, that's okay. We learn from it. And I think that, faster to fail is faster to learn and ultimately faster to win. And so we're not afraid to do that. And I try, look, like any entrepreneur, I think sometimes I can get caught up in the minutia and micromanage. And, we're certainly maniacal about quality and excellence, which I think is important. But I'm
Right.
also willing to give my people rope and let them fail occasionally so that they learn. And I think that's important as well. And I try to be somebody that empowers our people and really, lets them take on as much responsibility as they can handle, and sometimes maybe even a little bit more than that, and they can kind of grow into that role.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. No, this is great. Now, okay, we talk about people, we talk about building a team. Obviously, you don't get to the point where you're at by yourself and by doing it all yourself. So, okay, so how do you choose your staff? How do you choose your team player? How do you go about doing that?
So, it's funny. I'm actually not the best interviewer because I'm very much like I'm trying to get along with people. I'm trying to connect, I'm trying to build a connection. So, my co-founder is actually much better on the interviewing front, and some of my team members, because they'll put people kind of like through the quote unquote ringer a little bit more. And really, what we're trying to do is just see how people will respond under pressure. I think that is important because if everything's just happy-go-lucky and do I like you? Do you like me? Then you don't find out how somebody is going to act and operate when there's stress. And
Right.
inevitably in a startup environment, there is stress. It is fast moving. So we need to know, like, under stress, are you honest? Under stress, can you still problem solve? Right. And so we do need to kind of suss that out a little bit. We also do numerical reasoning tests. We do personality fit tests. We really put hires through quite an extensive vetting process, multiple
Mhm.
interviews. And the reason for that is that, the whole idea of hire slow, fire fast. And it's so costly to hire somebody, train them up, have them in the org for a few months to find out they're not a fit and then have to start over. So we'd rather spend more time on the upfront, potentially have people self-select out because they don't want to do all the work of our hiring process, and that's
You really
fine.
want it, right? It's almost
Yeah,
like
we're not for everybody. That's fine. We want people who really want it. Exactly. Like you said, who are passionate, who really care about what we're doing. And so that sort of, susses some of those candidates out that maybe aren't as bought in. And then even with all of that, sometimes we still whiff and people are good interviewers and on day one or week one is clearly not a fit. And we've had to rip the Band-Aid off when it comes to that too. Hire somebody, think they're going to be great, and then on day one, they're making demands about their schedule, and it's a totally different tune than what it was during the interview process. So, it's hard. Hiring is definitely what can supercharge your growth, right? There's only so much you can do solo. I had the hustler mentality for a long time. Like, what can I do myself? Like, how can I, you know, hire a bunch of people overseas to kind of just help support me and run the day to day. And I've found over time that hiring 10x, 100x employees that might be more expensive, that might be stateside, that might come with substantial equity. If it's the right person and the right hire, can stand up an entirely new business line. And I've seen that happen for us.
well, it has happened for you. I mean, from what I
Yes.
get, you guys are
Yeah.
pretty successful. You're
Yeah.
driving a very prosperous business and all that. This is great. Okay, good. No, this is great. So, one more question for you, almost at the end here. Let's say we get into a time machine, you and I, we go back a few years back. Want to go to when you first started as an entrepreneur, from the standpoint of where you're at right now. What tips or what advice would you give your younger self, knowing what you know now?
I think it's something that I naturally have gravitated towards. And I think it's so important for early entrepreneurs. And that is having a sense of urgency. And, I think too many people get caught up in planning, oh, I need to find the perfect idea that I am super passionate about. And I've gotten caught up in that too. I think that you learn so much by doing. Just pick something that seems interesting to you and try it. Right. And if it works out, great. If it doesn't, you'll learn from it and you'll kind of move on to the next thing. I mean, so many entrepreneurs start, a number of different things before but they learn so many things along the way. I know that happened to me, right? I had an events promotion business. I had a, real estate subletting business. I had the
Right.
short-term rental business, right? And like, varying degrees of success along the way and various setbacks and hurdles. And then, we had this treehouse hotel concept that really blew up during COVID, and that led to a thriving services business. So it's not necessarily always a straight line, and you can learn so much by taking action, putting products out into the universe, talking to customers, finding out what works, that you can't start soon enough.
Awesome. No, that's great. And I hear that very often. You don't have to get it perfect. just have to
Yeah.
get it going.
Yeah. You just got to
You
get it
know,
out there and get feedback because the reality is that you're never going to get it perfect, right?
yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah, even if you think it's perfect, you don't know what the customer knows, right? So you might think it's perfect and it doesn't meet a need perfectly. So you're better off getting some out there and adapting to the customer feedback you get.
Excellent. All right. So to end, what's in the future? What's in the future for you and OAC?
Yeah, so we're continuing to try to disrupt the hospitality space. I think it's ripe for disruption.
I
And
love it.
look, I think great hospitality hasn't changed. It's just how do we deliver that? How do we care for people in a way that they want to be cared for? And how do we create a product that's not only comfortable, but also inspiring and differentiated and makes people stop scrolling and want to come be a part of your story and collaborate with you on the guest journey at your hotel. So that's what we're working on. We're going to continue to grow this services business, a full service hotel management company, marketing company, and development company. And more broadly than that, we are continuing to learn and push the envelope around building audiences and building brands. And that may expand beyond hotels someday. We'll see.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Ben, thank you very much for your time. Lots of good insight and valuable. So I want to tell you, I appreciate you being on the podcast today. Thank you very much. And here's to many more years of success for you and your team. All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. And for the rest, well, we'll see you on the next interview. All right. Bye-bye for now.